How's it going, Rogues Gallery, and welcome to another Palworld card game video here on Red Zone Rogue. Today we are kicking off our Palworld card game deck tech series with my favorite deck in the entire game. We have blue, purple, mostly purple, Reanimator. This is a really fun, really cool, like mid-range graveyard strategy recursion style deck. I've always been a huge fan of these graveyard and Reanimator style decks, and when I saw that one was not only viable but very good in Palworld, dude, I could not help myself. If you actually watched our like 5 or was it 6 Palworld deck video, this is similar to that list that I brewed several weeks ago, but I have made a lot of changes, and my philosophy regarding building Palworld decks is quite a bit different now. We'll talk about that in today's video as we go over the deck. As always, I will have a deck list in the description down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you like the Palworld content. Let me know what kind of deck you'd like to see me feature next. Probably be my blue-red dragon list, but without further ado, let's go ahead and check this one out. I've been working on this one. I think this deck is actually really solid. I want to give a big shout out, by the way, to my buddy Khalil, who is a world champion competitor for Bushiroad Games. He and I were chatting about just like deck building and Palworld in general, and after he made some suggestions, we added some pretty sweet stuff here. So, well, he told me what he was running in his dragon deck, and I was like, yo, I think I could actually utilize some of that here in this Reanimator deck. And like I said, we'll talk about that. So yeah, let's get started. All right, so here we have our very first Palworld deck tech. Before we get started, I want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, myself. This is actually one of our original Red Zone Rogue playmats. This one was done several years ago. In fact, I want to mention now, for anything on the merch store, no AI art now, no AI art ever for anything on this channel or the merch store. This one actually is old enough that it predates our original card back, which is kind of interesting. This is one of our old horror theme ones, if it wasn't obvious. I thought it made a lot of sense for this deck. This is all about reanimating our pals from the graveyard, after all. So we're gonna break down this deck in a couple different piles, and then we'll go from there. So let's go ahead and get started. Of course, we have our soul, and we have our little life counter. Of course, all the sleeves for this are Dragon Shield sleeves, and I do want to mention they're not really a sponsor, but we do have an affiliate link with Dragon Shield in the description down below. So if you'd like to pick up some Dragon Shield stuff at 5% off, hey, you can use my code. It helps support the channel, and you can get some stuff at a little bit cheaper, 5% off. You can use Rogue 5. Anyway, let's talk about the deck, and we're going to start by talking about our Lucky Pals. Now, I think the Lucky Pals, for the most part, for a lot of Palworld decks, are kind of what you build the deck around, or they're very powerful cards that are indicative of what you're going to be doing. Not always, but sometimes, just because they are limited to 8. And we're actually running 3 different Lucky Pals. We're running a 3-3-2 split on the Lucky Pals. So the big one for us is Katress. I love this card. Katress Abyssal Sorcerer. She's a 6-cost Lucky Pal. And then once per turn, we can butcher one of our other pals, and then Katress gets plus 1,000, and then an additional strike. So she becomes 1,900 with 3 strikes, which is pretty good. And then also, auto, when one of our pals is butchered, we can choose up to 1 normal pal in our graveyard and deploy it in the rest state, where its cost is -1 of the butchered pal. And it has to be exactly -1. You might be able to read this a little bit better, but you can also see it on on the digital version, like on the deck list. But yeah, it just says where X is equal to the cost of the butchered pal -1. It's not X or less, it's very specific, X -1. We do have a bunch of other reanimation cards that are X or less, but Katress has to be 1 less than the butchered pal. So this is one of the big parts of our deck, is we're going to be bringing our pals back from the graveyard and getting use of their effects multiple times. Essentially, this is a mid-range into more of a controlling type strategy. We want to control the board. We have a lot of removal. We have a lot of hand disruption for our opponent. It's a really sweet deck, and it's super resilient, and I feel like it has a pretty solid matchup against almost everything currently in Palworld. We have good tech versus go wide decks. We have pretty good tech versus go tall decks. This deck is just super fun, and it's very versatile. I feel like this is the kind of deck that rewards a lot of player knowledge and maybe even more player skill than something that's just like slam out your dudes and attack. So we're running 3 copies of the Katress. We're also running 3 copies of SHADOWBEAK. So SHADOWBEAK is an 8-drop Lucky Pal, 1300 power, 3 strike, and then continuous while this card is in the rest state, it's nighttime. And then also, while it's nighttime, our Pal's auto effects trigger twice, which includes the Katress. So we can actually trigger the auto effect to get a Pal back from our graveyard twice. We can get 2 Pals back, which is actually quite sweet. And then it also says auto at the end of our turn. We choose up to one of our Pals and we butcher it. Once again, that would trigger the Katress effect. If we butchered one or more this way, our opponent chooses one of their Pals and they puts it in the graveyard. So once again, if it's night, then this will trigger twice, which is really powerful. And obviously, having Katress trigger twice is really powerful. One other thing I didn't note about Katress, since it is X is -1 of the cost of the Pal that you get back, we have a lot of Pals that essentially follow like a sequence. We have like 8 drops, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, like all the way down, right? We have a full range of costs in the deck, so we can kind of like chain things, back from the graveyard with Katress. So anyway, SHADOWBEAK's super good. Helps double up our auto triggers, and it also just helps kill stuff and works well with the Katress. So we're running 3 copies of the SHADOWBEAK. And then our final Lucky Pal is actually the Menacing. I think it's really good in this deck. So it's a 5-cost, 700 power, 2-strike Lucky Pal. And then auto has Retaliate, which means when this is put in the graveyard during battle, it also kills the opposing thing too. So that's great. It does not lose battle. Well, it will die, but it'll take your opponent with it. And then also auto, when this is put into the graveyard, choose up to 1 normal Pal in our graveyard and return it to hand. So basically, not a Lucky Pal. But we can get back our our Force of Pals, Interrupt Pals, or we can get back some of our big stuff as well, which is really nice. So this one also helps get stuff back. And once again, if it's night with SHADOWBEAK and SHADOWBEAK is rested, then we get this twice, which is super nice. Get 2 dudes back, very good. And so those are our Lucky Pal suite. Let's talk about some of the rest of the deck. Now, initially when I was building Palworld decks, I was a little bit greedy. And I was only running about 4 to 6 of the what I call Force of Pals, or these Interrupt Pals. That they all have the same effect. You can act, interrupt, quick speed from your hand. You can pay 1 and discard this card, or discard this card and another card to nullify an opponent's attack. These are super good and very relevant to how the Palworld card game just plays. And I have changed my mind. I'm up to minimum 8 per deck. I would say 8 to 12 is the normal for me now. In this deck in particular, these are quite good because we can actually pitch these and another card. So for example, like this Lylene Noct. And then we can get them back from some of our effects, like Katress or like the Menacing. So in this deck in particular, these are actually like really sweet. So we're running the Blaze Howl Noct, which is a Force of Pals with 900 power and 2 strike. And then I'm also running the Pyron Noct, which I think is actually super sweet for this. They're a 7-drop, but they have 1100 power and 3 strike. So 3 strike on a Force of Pals card is actually like pretty good for helping close out the game. But it's also nocturnal, which means if it's night, it'll get an additional plus 300, making it 1400. And that's super relevant because that survives one of the best cards in the game, the Shotgun. Because the Shotgun deals 1200 damage. You're going to see the Shotgun like everywhere. I think it's one of the best cards in the game, and a lot of decks will be running red just to play the Shotgun. Because it kills almost everything in the game, and it hits your opponent's entire board. So having this survive the Shotgun is huge. So if we have our SHADOWBEAK in play, and it's nighttime, then both SHADOWBEAK and the Pyron Noct will survive the Shotgun. It's really important to note that. If your opponent's playing red and you're getting to the late game, one of the targets you can get back that I think is really good is 1, obviously SHADOWBEAK, but 2, reanimating something like the Pyron Noct if you already have SHADOWBEAK is pretty sweet because it survives shotguns. So yeah, keep that in mind. Also, other than that, it's just a Force of Pals card, right? You just discard it, plus another card, or pay one, and then you cancel an attack. And so yeah, these are obviously really good. So this is kind of like the foundation of the deck. As for all Palworld decks, you have your Lucky Pals, and then you have your Force of Pals. All right, and then we have everything else. So let's talk about our Pals first, and then we'll talk about all of the events and everything around that. So let's start at the top with Lylene Noct. She's an 8-drop, 1700 power and 3 strike. She's one of our other reanimation pals. So act, we can rest this card and discard a card from our hand, and we choose a 6 cost or less pal from our graveyard, and we deploy it in the rest state. Now this pal can actually be a lucky pal, so we can get back Katress with this, which is really, really nice. So this is one of the ways we can actually get back our Katress. It's also a 8 cost card, so if we sack this with Katress, we can get back a 7 cost, so we can get back something like the Pyron Noct. Though this being 1700 is pretty big, and it means it survives most things in the game, this is one of our just big end value cards. We're running just 2 copies of this. We don't want too many of these, because it's, you know, really high cost. I'm also running my favorite. This is my favorite. I love this. I keep calling him the Relaxosaurus. I know it's the Relaxorus, but Relaxosaurus just sounds so much better. Anyway, I'll call him the Relaxorus. But yes, this is the Relaxorus Hungry Gunner, 7-drop pal, 1200 power, 3 strike, auto on deploy. Choose up to 1 6 or less pal, and you rest it. And while this pal is in the base, the opponent's pal does not unrest. It does not stand. So you just lock it down, which is super, super good. This is one of the best pals to get back from some of our reanimation effects. Unfortunately, we can't get it back with Lylene, because Lylene only does 6s, 6 or less, but we can get it back with some other stuff depending on how we go. We can sack the Lylene Noct to the Katress to get back a Relaxorus, which is good. We're only running 2 copies, and yes, I'm running my fancy versions, and yes, this is single-sleeved, and yes, I am playing with this. I just love this card, man. So yeah, jamming with my Relaxorus. Big fan. And then now we have some more, like, I would call these like our nuts and bolts pals. We have Tombat, we have the Pangolin, and then we have the Leespunk. These all do really good, efficient things when they come into play. And they also trail down. So we have 5, 4, 3. And so this means that with a Katress, we can sack like the Tombat to get back the Pangolin, or we can sack the Pangolin to get back the Leespunk. And you can kind of see that going down the line, right? So if we have this, if we have the Blaze Howl Noct out, if we like play it out, we can sack it to get like the Tombat back, for example. And like I said, we have this kind of like cascading, you know, cost down. We have 7s, 6s, 5, 4, 3s. All right, so let's talk about what they do. So Tombat is a 600 power, 2 strike, 5 cost, auto on deploy. Once again, anything that says auto gets doubled with SHADOWBEAK. So that includes our the Relaxorus effect as well. So all these get doubled with SHADOWBEAK. It's just all part of that. So auto on deploy, we reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, and we choose a pal, any pal from among them, put it in our hand, put the rest in the graveyard. Fuels our graveyard, draws us a card. This card is great. Just an absolute staple for this style of deck, in my opinion. Then we also have the Pangolin. This is the rare Pangolin from the booster set. It's a 4 cost, 600 power, 2 strike pal, and then auto, when it's put from the graveyard, we draw a card. Once again, you get some crazy value if you have the knocked out, draw 2 cards. This is a great fodder target for the Lylene, or for the, I mean, yeah, you can get it back with Lylene, but it's a great fodder target for the Katress. And yeah, we're running a full 4 of these, and we're also running the Pangolin rocket launcher, which is going to be a big part of how we control the game going forward as well. So we'll talk about that when we get to the removal section. And then finally, for our pals, we have the Leespunk Treasure Bandit. I love this card. It might be another one of my favorite cards in the game. 3 costs, 200 power, 1 strike. But when this card is put in the graveyard it has to be from the field. Your opponent chooses one of the cards in their hand and discards it. This is another crazy, just awesome card to get out, and then we just sack it or butcher it to any of our cards that let us like butcher stuff. And we have more stuff that also let us butcher. So the Leespunk is just super good. This is one that we want to churn through, right? We want to you know, get this out, hopefully attack with it, get a nice little attack in, chip in a little bit of damage, and then we butcher it to any of our various effects. And once again, this is auto, so with the SHADOWBEAK, it happens twice. And those are our pals, right? We have very efficient pals that do stuff when they come into play or when they die. We have our Forza pals. We have our powerful, kind of our more top-end pals. I guess the Relaxers should be like, you know, maybe up there. But I have a deck list in the description. Yeah, these are the pals. So let's talk about the rest of the deck. The rest of this deck is going to basically focus around removal, controlling the game, and setting up more reanimation. So we are running 4 copies of Zoe Strategy. This card is cracked. It has 3 modes. The first mode is you can reduce our opponent's resources, which is pretty good. You can give them like -5 wood or food in any combination. That sometimes might come up, but not generally. Usually we'll pick one of the other effects. And here I have the other versions. We can actually have run one of each of all the versions. We're running 4 copies of Zoe Strategy. And so it also says, or we can choose a pal from our graveyard and return to our hand any pal. And then if we do, our opponent chooses a card from their hand and discards it. Once again, we have more hand disruption, both from the Lee's Punk and from Zoe Strategy. And then, or the final one is we can choose one of our pals and you butcher it. If we butcher one of our pals, our opponent also has to sack one of their dudes. So this is, it doubles as removal and as recursion, which is really good. So this is one of the best cards in our deck. It's just a 3 cost. You know, just eating one of our like Lee's Punks or our Pangolets. This is kind of what we want to be butchering with Zoe Strategy. And then we can actually get stuff back, like some of our big stuff back. Like this is how we can get back like a SHADOWBEAK or even like Katress or something. So very good, very, very good. Running a full 4 of these. We're also going to be running 2 copies of Victor Strategy. I initially had more of these, but I kind of took them out a little bit. I still think it's really good though. It's a 3 cost event, and then you can choose one of the following. You can look at the top 5 of your deck and pick one of them from it and put it in your hand. And then you just shuffle the rest of the cards back into your deck. Or you can choose a pal and then return to the opponent's hand, which is pretty nice. Or you can draw X cards, where X is the number of our structures. We are running 1 structure, so we technically could draw like a bunch of cards with this if we have all of them out, but usually we're going to be doing the first effect. If you look at the top 5, pick a card, or we bounce an opponent's pal. I'm just running 2 copies of Victor Strategy, but it is good. I can see you running up to maybe another 1 or 2 of these in the deck. Now we have some more removal. So you have the Dart Cannon, just a 3 cost quick event. Choose a pal that costs 5 or less, and then you put it in the graveyard. So just kill one of your opponent's pals. This is some of our early game interaction, which is pretty nice. And then I'm also running Strike from Darkness. This is just a 4 cost. Choose a pal, put it in the graveyard. Just kill any pal. I'm actually running 3 copies of Strike from Darkness and then 2 of the Dart Cannon because I found that this deck, in a like mid-range control matchup, we want to be able to beat the Dig Toys. So that's another really big key card that you'll see is the Dig Toys. So the Dig Toys can be absolutely huge into the late game. And this is one of the cards that's just like, I kill your Dig Toys. It's just like, get it out of there. So I think having answers to stuff that are huge, like the Dig Toys, is really important. We also still have our low-level answers. We have other ways to kill stuff as well, or lock things down with our Relaxers, but still, I think having just hard removal is really good. So yeah, this is kind of like a removal suite. And then, capping off the removal, we have the Pangollet Rocket Launcher. So this is a card that I added in after talking with Khalil, because he added this into his Dragon deck. And I was like, yo, that makes so much sense. I'm already running Pangollet. It makes so much sense that I put the Rocket Launcher in, and it just adds a whole other level to this deck that makes it like that much more competitive. So what does this do? It's a 4 cost gear. Act, you rest this, we choose a pal, and it gets plus 200 until end of turn. If we chose a Pangollet, it gets 500 until end of turn, and then it gives the Pangollet the ability to rest itself, sack itself, and then deal its damage to all of our opponent's stuff, which is so good. And so essentially, with just a Pangollet and 1 rocket launcher out, we can sack the Pangollet and do 1100 damage to our opponent's board. It's so good. And like I said, there's not a ton of stuff that survive that. Shotgun is 1200, so Shotgun's still more, but still. And then you also get a draw card from the Pangollet dying. And then we can also recur the Pangollet from all of our things that help us recur stuff. We can get it back with the Katress, we can get it back with the Zoes, we also can get it back with our final card we'll talk about. So like, this is actually like one of the big linchpins of the deck is like just rocket launching our opponent. Like we just Pengle it, get into the rocket launcher, blow up all their stuff, and we can just do it multiple times. You can also stack the effects, sort of. So what you can do is if you have 2 Pengle rocket launchers, you can give the Pengle plus 500, or plus 1,000, and so it would be 1,600 and then sack it. It wouldn't do the damage twice, it would just do the 1,600 damage, but it would still get the plus 500 from this one, and then the plus 500 from this one, or maybe even the third one, because we're running 3. So you can give it additional 500 and then sack it, because it'll do damage to your opponent's board equal to its power, which is pretty nice. So yeah, we're running 3 Pengle rocket launchers. And then finally, our last card is our only gear, or only structure, and that's the Medieval Medicine Workbench. And I've been thinking about dropping this down to 3 copies, and then adding in either another Victor's or more removal. That's generally what I'm thinking about adding in. I really, maybe you can add another one of these top-end cards, but I think adding in another Victor's or another one of these removal, it might be where you go with this. But let's talk about what this does. So, it is a 4-cost structure. It has 1,300 health. Act once per turn, you can pay 3 and assign a PAL, and then you choose a cost X or less PAL from our graveyard and deploy it in the rest state. X is equal to the cost of the assigned PAL plus 2. So, this means that at the bare minimum, no matter what PAL we assign, we can get a 5-drop back, because our lowest cost PAL is a Leespunk. So if we assign a Leespunk to this, then we can get back like Tombat, or we can get back like a Menacing, which is actually really good, because this doesn't stipulate that it has to be normal. It can be any PAL. So we can actually get back any of our other PALs, right? This is how we can get back some of our really powerful lucky PALs. We can get back like the Menacing or the SHADOWBEAK or any of this other stuff. It also means that, once again, you have to go the opposite direction, so we go up from here. So our Pengle can get up to a 6-drop, so it can get Pengle can get back the Katress, the Tombats can get back up to the Relaxorus, and then after we get to 6s, we can get back our Lilines or the SHADOWBEAK. So once again, it scales up. The reason I'd go into running 3 of this is it's not really a card you want to have too many copies of. You could have 2 out on the field, and it is a once per turn, and if you have the 2 PALs, you can use them both to get stuff back, but it's a lot of resources and whatnot. The reason I'm running 4 is I just really want to see one of these in a game. It's just such an important card for the deck, but I can also see just going down on this and up 1 on like Victor's to kind of compensate for that. So that's where I am with this. I'm currently running the 4, but I hope you're watching the video and you kind of like understand. We could go down, and it's something that I'm very much considering and like playing around with. Going up on like the Victors, or maybe once again like the Dark Cannon, for example. And that's our deck. And so you can kind of hopefully see how this plays. We have a ton of extremely powerful removal. We have a ton of really good recursion. We have ways to get cards back or kill stuff like Zoe's. And I didn't even mention this, but Zoe can get back like our Force of Pal stuff back to our hand, so we can discard it again, which is also just really, really good. Just being able to kind of like do all of this recursion is very, very nice. And we are playing into like what I would consider like the more competitive meta, playing around stuff like the shotgun and like the dig toys. And when the deck is schmoovin', man, it's really schmoovin'. You're ripping stuff out of your opponent's hand, you're killing their stuff, and then we can kind of like outvalue them into the late game. And then we also, like I said, tons and tons of removal. So yeah, this is our very first Palworld deck tech. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section down below. We have a lot more coming. I think the next one will be another really powerful deck, probably my second favorite deck, my take on blue-red dragons. You've already seen my list in my very first like 5 Palworld deck video that I released a couple weeks ago, but things have changed. I've changed the decks quite a bit. As you can see, this deck has changed quite a bit. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you for being here. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, see you next time.